Connor is, as Jim mentioned, a YouTuber by start, but it's really branched off into a lot of different things. I was looking at his overall social reach, and he's about 18 million across all those different platforms. He has a subscription copy line. He has a record label that he founded with Andrew here. And he has an apparel line, as well as a New York best-selling book. So, he's definitely doing a lot of really great things out here, and is really, expanding on his brand. And of course, Andrew here is his business partner in launching his record label and launching, a lot of the different projects that he works on. So, I'm really excited to have you guys here and really share your story. But, I'd love if you guys could sort of introduce yourselves a little bit and talk a little about your relationship and sort of, how you guys work together. How much are you guys in communication, and how are these relationships really building between digital talent and what we've seen traditional background, and sort of how's that all coming to play, right?
Sure. After you.
After me? All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. I started working with Connor about 2.5 years ago, and our day-to-day work really is management, right? Talent management. And Connor's unique in that, unlike a traditional sort of like actor or actress or writer or director or producer, we're really not spending a lot of our time looking at scripts and breaking down, projects. Connor's really interested in building new businesses around his passions, right? And so a lot of what I have been tasked with, and it's very fun, is building new businesses around those passions. So when it comes to coffee, helping put together kind of I never thought like 4 years ago, I'd be putting together a coffee line with Connor. Like, it's a very strange sort of thing to start working on, but not in Seattle, I guess. We're big coffee fans. The record label and things like that. So really as a business partner, really trying to build enterprise value. And so what's interesting about our business is often and we'll get into this, work transactionally. That's kind of a bad word, as Dennis was talking about a minute ago, with brands, and that's a big part of our business, but increasingly it's about building businesses of our own, and sometimes in partnership with brands. So that's sort of the day-to-day work. Does that make sense? Is that right?
I'm confused. Hi, everyone. I'm Connor Franta. Basically, so I started on YouTube and I started on social, and I started making YouTube videos about 5 years ago, and expanded to Twitter and Instagram and everything as you do. But one thing that I figured out over the past couple of years is that I wanted to add more longevity to my career, and a way to do that is by building businesses. But where to start with a business was kind of initially difficult, but then it obviously made total sense to just drive it around my passions, which are coffee, clothing, and music. So over the past couple of years, I've, with Andrew and with the help of a couple other people, I've just built businesses around that. And that is kind of my main focus now, aside from YouTube. And it's been totally an amazing journey that has done so much better than I thought it would, to be honest. And that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what is interesting with, creators like yourself and, sort of in this space is that you are really bridging things that don't really make sense to a certain degree, right? I mean, coffee and apparel and a record label are not three things that, any one company really does, right? Yeah. So, I mean, but, obviously that does go under, Connor's umbrella. So, like, how do you sort of bridge all these things? I mean, I know they're all passions for you, but how do they all do they work together? Are they do you look at them as like sort of separate entities, and you're, promoting them all separately, but, obviously it's all under your brand, right? So, like,
yeah, it's all come together under the brand Common Culture. So it's essentially a lifestyle brand. Like, I'm trying to create a brand that takes all of my favorite passions and puts them conveniently under one website and one brand name. So they're separate, but somehow kind of cohesive into a lifestyle brand.
We like to use the analogy of like the honest company for the YouTube generation, right? That there is sort of a social cause, that these are, they are a lifestyle brand, and there's definitely a story. Connor, to his credit, has been very careful to use sort of like his celebrity to start to pour some rocket fuel into these projects, but they don't have your name on it. They don't have your face on it. They have their own independent social accounts. It's really a separate branded, owned, and operated project.
So, from, you sort of mentioned it there, right? They do have separate social channels, but, do they all have, we talk about brand voice a lot, right? And talking about when we're talking to our clients, we talk about, what is the voice that, you have on all your social channels, and how does that sort of play with all the different pieces, right? Whether that's through your broadcast pieces or social or leveraging influencers, there is that voice. So for you guys, how are you pulling that voice through all of your different adventures, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean the voice, my YouTube voice and my internet personality voice is pretty different from what I want the common culture voice to be. The common culture voice is way more premium and way more quality and way more specifically planned versus kind of my internet voice is sporadic and crazy and I say whatever I want, frankly. But yeah, I manage the social accounts and I manage the aesthetic of the brand and the design of the brand all myself. And that's kind of I have a huge attention to detail, and I'm very, very picky with that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I spend my time shaping the brand.
A great deal of the content that ends up going up on Instagram is actually community contributed
Yeah,
content,
that's been a
right?
fun part. Yeah, the fans are submitting photos of their products themselves, so I'm using that as a way to both promote the products, but also a way to kind of shape the vision of the brand, and the fans of the products are shaping it themselves.
This might be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about Herdwell, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Okay.
Transition.
What is so we have this record label that's called Herdwell, but it's not your traditional record label. Is everyone familiar with like Now Music? Remember that, right? It's still around, but we've kind of created, again, I'm going to use this phrase, like the Now Music for the YouTube generation. It's a licensing business. So what we do at Herdwell is we find traditional celebrities as well as influencers kind of from Connor's pool of peers, and we say, what are your 12 favorite emerging musicians? Not like Katy Perry, right? Not Kid Cudi, like Grimes or Odessa or like people that are really on the cusp. They might not even have label deals yet. And what we do is we license that music and we put it on physical product like CDs, right? Which is a crazy thought. We bundle posters and T-shirts around this product. Then the influencer gets behind it and says, hey, look, this is my summer pool mix, or this is my the music I was listening to when I was on tour, when I was writing a book, or when I was on set. And inevitably what happens is that these albums start flying off the shelf. We sell them transactionally, too, on iTunes, and they fly up the charts. And so for the musicians, you're a kid in Biloxi, Mississippi making music in your basement. All of a sudden, you're on the top of the Billboard charts, and you're like, oh, my God, this is incredible, right? Now the major labels are calling me. If you're an influencer, it's great because you're talking about music anyway, but now you're getting paid to talk about the people that you care about, and you're giving someone a platform that didn't have a platform. So the voice of Herdwell, which falls kind of underneath the common culture umbrella, Connor does a compilation called Common Culture Compilations, a lot of C's, as you like to say, is really the voice of the influencer, right? So our company, we have not spent a single dime in traditional P&A, right? We don't run, well, literally I was on a call with our other business partner, Jeremy, about this, discussing, like, should we even be running Facebook ads or Instagram ads? Right now it's all literally earned media, right? It's our fans are galvanized around this. And so we allow each influencer, and this is kind of a lesson, I think, to anyone that is running sort of a brand, we allow our influencers really to take ownership over kind of how they promote it, right? One influencer might have a very strong Tumblr base. I'm not about to tell, and Connor's not about to tell that influencer, this is how you should be promoting this, right? It's like, go with God, right? We'll show you best practices, but like make it a success. If you're excited about it, it'll be a success. And that's, we put out 6 albums, all are Billboard top 10 albums.
Yep.
It's
Two
been,
of which have been #1 on the EDM charts, so it's been incredible.
it's been a fun run.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a good segue into a lot of why we're here, right? I mean, it says the future of influencer marketing, and we're thinking here. I'd love to sort of get your insight on like, what are you looking at when you're doing any partnerships with these brands? I'm sure people are knocking on your doors constantly. How are you sort of evaluating what brands are the right fit for you to does it even hit Connor's desk all the time? Or are you sort of, saying this doesn't really fit Connor and then, taking a third of them to Connor? Like, I'd love to sort of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, Connor sees everything. I feel like I have a fiduciary obligation to do that, but
Thank you.
you're welcome. I would say honestly, it's probably 1 in 10 we do, right?
Yeah, it has to be super authentic to me, and it has to be a brand I believe in. I don't work with just anybody. I have to believe in the product that I'm talking about, because my brand is based upon authenticity itself. So I want to make sure I'm truthful with my audience and not selling them something that I wouldn't use.
Right. I mean, but some of it comes into a monetary threshold, right? You can't do everything. It's not about doing all the deals. It's about doing the right deals. I mean, we've seen some really great marriages, like the Art Institute's a great example of this. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did a video series with the Art Institutes, and it was a great pairing because I love art, and I got to kind of go interview these artists in different realms, anyone from a designer to a fashion designer, And I got to go interview them with these students, and it was all leading up to this big art challenge, which I hosted with another YouTuber. So it was like just a perfect pairing in that way. I also work with brands like Amazon's Audible, which is great because I wrote a book myself, so I'm in the literary world, and that makes total sense.
It's all about finding that like initial hook.
So is it what the product is, right? I mean, from what I understand, you didn't go to Art Institute or you didn't go to art school, right? But you have a passion for it. So is it about sort of the product, or is it sort of about what the product represents and sort of like, does it align with you? Is that sort of what you're looking at when you're determining a good fit?
Yeah, usually both. It's
Sure.
simply, it's just, if it makes sense with me, and also if I just believe in the product in general, if I would use it.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way that we've worked, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of when a brand brings us or an agency brings us, like these are our like key talking points. These are our KPIs, like help us get there, right? As opposed to if it's too structured and like there's not a lot of flexibility, it makes it very challenging because these aren't sort of it's not broadcast. You're not throwing into a 30-second spot. I mean,
Right,
these are,
absolutely.
you're not only partnering with inventory, right? You're partnering with community and people and a really programmable brand. So you have to be super thoughtful and collaborative. There has to be trust on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely, right. I think that's a large part of what I feel like is responsibility on all sides, is that there needs to be a trust in both sides, that there are two brands here, right? It's the Connor Franta brand and the client, obviously, and how do we create a piece that sort of makes sense for both sides, right? That your audience is going to be really receptive to. Right? I think it's a really big key for everything that we're doing. Without having to call anyone out, like I'd love to sort of get what's going right in this space, right? What's going wrong? Like what do you think you would give? There's a lot of brand marketers out here. What's sort of the advice you would give them as they approach creators like yourself, and how does that work?
I mean, the best piece of advice I'd give anyone that wants to work with a creator is, again, to trust that they are a brand themselves and they know YouTube probably better than you, frankly, and you have to trust that they do know their own platform well, and it is a partnership. It's not a, here's some money, talk about us exactly the way that I tell you. You need to be kind of fluid and be able to work with them because, again, they know their brand better than anyone else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned something early on, a couple questions ago, that really sort of piqued my interest, which was about the fact that you are printing real CDs, which is something no one else is doing, right? And also, very similar to that, you had a book that was also very successful, right? And obviously, if you look at the top 10 now, it's littered with YouTube creators. What do you think it is that is sort of driving that, and why are you guys sort of going into that space, right, of something that isn't really that successful for many others, but why do you guys find like that's something that you guys are gravitating towards?
For books, I personally, I've always loved books and I've always loved the writing process. So I kind of wanted to reflect, for YouTube. YouTube is really, really short form content for me, and a book is long form, and you can spend more time on it, and you can dive deeper into whatever it is you're talking about, versus, again, YouTube kind of skims the surface. So for books, I just wanted to sit down and reflect and give my audience a deeper look into who I am as a person versus a 5-minute comedy skit on YouTube. For Heard Well with CDs, I've always been a big fan of anything from CDs to vinyl and having a physical product. So to be able to kind of bring that back has been really, really cool and really interesting to see that people actually want it and there is a need for it.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And there's also kind of like this interesting dynamic right now, like vinyl's actually peaking, well, it's spiking, right? It's not peaking. And like it's not a really sustainable peak, but what's happening is that people are buying this stuff like merchandise, right? Oh my gosh, I've got this big physical piece of vinyl that I can put on a wall now. I think the same dynamic is happening with books, right? If you are a fan, this is something, it's long form, to your point, so it is content, but it's physical product you can hold. So the way we've been marketing and selling it is really like merchandise, to be honest with you. And I think there's actually a huge void right now, and Connor's filling it smartly in the consumer product area. It's building these new merchandising, like consumer-facing brands, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a little bit, but how are you marketing that, right? I mean, I think that's sort of, you guys are clearly very successful at it. You guys are, like I mentioned, the top 10 is littered with creators creating books, right? But they're obviously taking a very different tactic than every other publisher out there. And you guys are clearly very successful at it. What do you think it is that you guys are doing that's, really driving book sales in a way that really isn't happening elsewhere?
I just think it's. I mean, I've done tweets and YouTube videos and everything. That's the only way that I ever promote. It's just the community aspect around it. People really attach to things that I attach myself to, and I can't necessarily attribute anything that I've done for that. They do. And yeah, and it's just always been driven through social. I wish I had like a better answer for that one, but that's just how I've always done it.
Yeah, and I mean, you made it super clear to your fans. Like, this is something I've spent literally 9 months of my life, like, pouring myself into, which made it, I think, more genuine.
That makes sense.
Another thought is that, book tours are really popular in general with authors. At least in our world, they're super popular. I mean, just trying to come into the building, we found fans who were holding the book, which is great. And so, that is also something we've been thoughtful of how we bake into our strategy as we roll out books, not just with Connor, but even with other clients. Book tours are a super big part of it. We were fortunate enough to be in Australia on a totally unrelated tour and baked in book sales to every single venue. So when you're moving stuff out of the Qantas arena, it becomes like meaningful.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Connor, for when I was watching a lot of your videos,
I'm sorry.
no, it was a fun time. I think what I really liked or what I really enjoyed is your videos. I think there was a video that you released probably a couple weeks ago, which was your say yes. You say yes.
Say yes to new.
Yes, which is like, I really enjoyed it, and I found, it was an inspiring video, and I think, and the comments were that, right? I mean, I think one of my favorite comments, one of the top comments, even when I checked it this morning, was, about a girl who was inspired to try out for her choir, and because of this video, right? So I mean, can you speak a little bit about like what it is that you're doing on your platform, or how you're leveraging your platform to sort of do good? I mean, I think, the other thing that I really admired about sort of how you've leveraged your platform is, the charity stuff that you've been doing, right? For your birthday, I think 2 years in a row, I think it's, you raised like something like $420,000 for the Thirst Project, right? So can you talk a little bit about like how you're leveraging your platform to really inspire and do good?
Definitely. YouTube has been a growing process for me. The content that I put out on has changed from anything from daily vlogs to comedy skits to more inspirational videos like the Say Yes to New. And I'm figuring out slowly those are the types of videos I thoroughly enjoy, videos that have a message and that kind of speak something to the viewer versus just being a quick 5 minutes that you forget about. So I've made videos like that one. I've made videos about this one called Life Doesn't Wait, which I made before my coming out video, which I made on YouTube, which did pretty well. And that one was about how life doesn't wait for you. You need to be the person you want to be now rather than wait for it. And then I followed up by making my coming out video. And then I've also been really fortunate to be able to use my platform for good. And I've worked with a charity called the Thirst Project, which provides wells and water for people in specifically Swaziland, Africa. And for my birthday every year, I realized that people always want to give me a birthday present, but I don't need anything. I have everything I need. So I decided every year that I'm going to do kind of a charity event around my birthday. And for the last 2 years, we've raised somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 for the Thirst Project. So that's been really incredible to use my platform for good, but also to see that this generation really wants to get involved and they like really rally around it and they get excited every year to like be a part of this thing that is bigger than themselves. So that's been truly a blessing that I got to do with my platform.
Yeah, no, that's really great. So what's sort of next for you guys, right? I mean, without going too much into spoilers and doing all that, what are you guys, what are the next avenues that you want to tackle? Are there new platforms that you're sort of interested in sort of leveraging, or sort of, what are the different business ventures you want to get into, right?
Go for it.
I'll talk a little bit about Herdwell just for another second. The next step for the company, we just did a deal with Sony Music Entertainment's Red, which is a distribution part of Sony, which gives us access to radio, print, physical manufacturing, all the other sort of traditional label services. So our bet at Herdwell is that if a Connor, or someone from Connor's sort of peer group is able to find the next, Betty Who or the next One Direction, right, that we've been sort of giving a platform to, because we've sort of been like, finding great players and then trading them to bigger teams. That's what we've been doing. Like literally all the major labels just like look at our release schedule and just sign our talent or the musicians we've been working with. So we're going to double down. We're going to say, okay, we can use all the great stuff that Sony has, right? We can spend digital ad dollars if we do decide to do that in a smarter way. We certainly have the influencer sort of angle covered, and we're going to start signing artists, right? And so breaking acts in a new way. That's one of the futures for Herdwell. You should probably talk about the rest of.
Oh, and then for me, for Common Culture, I'm going to continue. So I have a coffee subscription platform out right now, and that delivers coffee every 2 months. So we're going to continue to see how that goes with the market and hopefully start delivering it more regularly. And then also clothing. I've had like basically 1 season, 2 seasons of clothing come out now. So I'm going to continue to keep designing and evolving that. And for YouTube content, just keep putting out videos every single Monday and keep trying to one-up myself every week.
Look forward to it. So I have one last question. I think we'll open up to Q&A if we have any time here. We had Twitter at the shop about a month ago, and we had a pretty heated debate. Connor, you have 4 million Twitter followers, so I think you'd be better than anyone to answer this question. Andrew, you have 10,000, which is,
Huge.
Slay me.
perfectly amazing.
I'm open for business, guys.
I have 367, so, I think, collectively we can make an answer on this. I think there is probably one right answer. I mean, I'm hoping you guys have the same answer as I do. But the question was, is a burger a sandwich?
Oh my God. I knew you were going to rickroll us right now. Is a
I had to
burger
ask.
a sandwich? Do I have to answer first? Because I feel like
You do. You have 4 million
I'm gonna
followers.
say
I think you have to
yes.
answer first.
I'm
I think
going to
that's the way
say
this works.
yes. It is a sandwich.
So we're done here.
Just lost a follower.
Andrew, do you have a better answer than that?
No, definitely
No.
not.
Oh my goodness.
Avoid the
Jim, do
question.
we have any questions?
Any questions out here? How many people actually raise your hand think a burger is a sandwich? Come on, let's see. Raise your hand if you think
It's
a burger is a
on
sandwich.
the
You guys are
sandwich
wrong. You guys are
menu.
all
I
wrong.
think
people.
it's a sandwich. I actually do. We have a question
It
right
cannot
here.
be a sandwich.
Oh no, you had a question.
Sometimes. It was on the hotel.
Hi, Joe Hauk, Hauk Consulting. Connor,
That's why I picked it.
forgive me, I'm not familiar with your work at all, but I'm very impressed with the numbers that you've been able to raise for the nonprofit work. And I was just curious, do you know, are these millennials that are contributing in the nonprofit world? Because that is an area that nonprofits find it very difficult to reach out to and connect with to help them with their causes. And if that's the case, I'd like to understand more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have no exact data that says it is, but it is. I only market to my YouTube audience, and my YouTube audience is generally anywhere, like largely 13 to 24-year-old humans.
It is. There's a very, very quick, funny anecdote. Our partners at the Thirst Project said they got a phone call from a parent who said, there's a $5,000 charge on my credit card. And when I talked to my daughter about it, she explained that she was donating. So she's grounded, but we're going to give you the donation.
Wow.
Hey guys, Zach Kaufman from One World Studios. I wanted to know if Connor's doing anything on Facebook Live. Do you simulcast? Do you do one to YouTube completely separate? Are you doing one on Facebook and then just uploading it to your YouTube? It's more of a tactics question as opposed to a strategy question.
Yeah, oh God, I can't talk. As of this point, I just upload my content to YouTube, and for Facebook Live, I'm actually thinking about it. I've heard it's incredible, so I haven't done it yet though, but I'm thinking about it.
For our coffee subscription, we just did a YouNow broadcast, a coffee talk. We might be A/B testing it with Facebook.
Another question over here?
So how do you think your audience feels about big brands? Like, is Starbucks like, sort of evil corporate brand, or is Starbucks like a, friendly brand, or sort of insert big brand? How do they feel?
They've grown to understand it. I think initially in the space, when you did branded content, it was a little bit taboo. Oh my God! But the more you do it, and the more you're again authentic, and you believe in the products that you're talking about, they truly don't care. In fact, they're like appreciative that they're like, oh, you introduced me to this cool new brand. I know so many of my viewers use Amazon's Audible now regularly.